Hello, everyone. Welcome to Summer Equals IPL. We've been celebrating some top Indian cricketers during the course of this IPL, and there isn't anybody greater than MS Dhoni in India, is there? We've got Abhimanyu, Rishi, and Adi. We're going to count down some of MS's best ever moments in an Indian shirt, in a CSK jersey, whatever be the case. We're going to talk about some top moments from MS's career. Rishi is a huge MSD fan. Rishi, I'm going to come to you first. What are your first memories of Dhoni playing cricket or walking onto a cricket field? Of course, we probably didn't catch the debuts of MS back in I don't even know when. It was pre 2007 for sure. So that's when I started watching cricket. I'm pretty sure that's when you started watching cricket. So what are your first memories of him?
It was the long hair hipster look, the guy who the guy who came out of nowhere with no reputation, no clout or of any sort, just this random guy playing the most unorthodox shots ever. Who for some reason he didn't look nervous. He looked like he owned the place, to be honest, and he didn't even have that arrogance about him. He was just there to hit the ball like clean with power. Like that's like my first memory of MS Dhoni.
Abhimanyu, you were given around for longer than us, so you probably have a better first memory of MS. So what is your first memory of him?
Firstly, thanks for calling me old, I guess. But yeah, no, I my first memory of him is I have a couple, and now it's kind of muddled in my head. But yeah, like the knock against Pakistan,
Mhm.
the that it
2006
was,
was it?
I think it was slightly earlier, but that and then, but the first one that I really remember very well was obviously that 183 against Sri Lanka, where
2005.
he just yeah, where he just went bonkers, and I was oh, what is this? Like we had Sehwag, but like this was just like something else, like so
I'll,
yeah.
I'll
And
come.
also I think another like it wasn't as much of a memory on the field, but just having Musharraf come out and tell Dhoni that I like your hair and you should keep it like this. So that was a cool moment, like given the whole rivalry and everything, for him to kind of uh, for Dhoni to kind of get endeared to him. That was pretty cool.
So we'll just come back to a little later in his career because this is the first time I saw MS. It was the 2007 T20 World Cup. This was the first proper look that I got of him. He was, of course, captaining that T20 side. And it was the first game. It was India Pakistan, and with the one that went to super over. And he was like the calmest, coolest guy out there. He made the decision to bowl these part timers. Robin Uthappa had a shot at the bowl out. It was Harbhajan Singh, Virender Sehwag. He didn't go to the regular bowlers, and I was like, dude, that's something else. Like this guy is different. He's gone with his gut. He's gone with the guys who he thinks will hit the stumps. He's not gone with his regular bowlers, and that was just remarkable. Adi, do you remember moments from that 2007 T20 World Cup? Of course, it was one of his first ever, big achievements in a long list.
Yeah, dude. I mean, as Rishi said, the first time I remember about Dhoni, I feel like everyone's first is that long hair. He used to come with that long hair, standing behind the wickets. And like always, the cameras used to go on him a lot because him being the captain, especially first time captaining, an Indian T20 squad in the World Cup. I feel like all the limelight was on him, and winning that 2007 World Cup was like literally the first time I literally got introduced to cricket as MSD being the captain at that time, because that's the first time I watched cricket. And 2007 World Cup, MSD as the captain, I thought, oh, this is the cool dude in in this Indian team, because he actually looked pretty cool, dude. He had that long hair, and he was just very commanding. And as you said, he was like very chill on the field. He looked very calm. He looked like someone who knew what he was doing. So yeah, I mean that was literally my first memory of Dhoni.
Rishi, I'm going to put you on the spot, dude. It's very hard to pick between, at least in his early years, it's hard to pick between his batting and his captaincy. If you had to pick one MSD the captain or the MSD the batter, who would you go for?
Um, for me, it's not really that hard. Like India, like we've traditionally had, like higher scorers than MSD, and like to be honest, even more aesthetic batsmen than MSD. But we've not had a captain who's like even come close in terms of success, but in terms of like in-game strategies and like man management and like the on-field decisions that he takes. Like no one's ever even come close to that kind of like composure that MS Dhoni has shown. So for me, it's not that hard to pick. Like we've had players of like like Virendra Sehwags, the Dravids, the Sachin Tendulkars. Like they're all known for their aesthetics. They're all known for their orthodox cricket shots. But and they'll on their day they all were probably better batsmen, pure batsmen than MSD. But to be honest, we've never had a captain who might never even come close to MS Dhoni. So for me, the choice is simple. It's MS Dhoni, the captain.
Fair enough. I mean, that's probably the choice for most people. I just think for me, he was really impactful as a batter as well. But again, nothing taken away from the way he captained the side. If that's the case, Abhimanyu, where does he rank in a list of successful Indian captains giving context to their eras? Like Saurav Ganguly was a really successful captain given his era. Same for say an Azharuddin or a Kapil Dev. And then later on we had Virat Kohli, who obviously went on to lead the test side to great successes. So where does he rank for you in terms of Indian captains?
Um, it's like I think he's the best we've had. Like, I mean, I love what Kohli has done for the test, especially with the test team and everything. And of course, Ganguly's captaincy was very important, given at the time it came with the whole scandal that was going on, match fixing and everything. Kapil Dev, Kapil Dev, of course, like first World Cup when no one was expecting it. But Dhoni was the one who kind of like getting two World Cups and then the Champions Trophy, and just the fact that and he also had to oversee a transition from the golden era of Indian batters that we had under the when Ganguly was there, like, and so yeah, I think it's very hard to put him anywhere but the top.
Adi, for me, I think it's close. It's I think MS is number one, but I think Ganguly is a very close second because I think he had to deal with a lot. He transitioned that Indian side from being the more submissive team to becoming the more dominant side in certain games, and also had to deal with a lot of things, Greg Chappell and all of that noise in the background. So where does Dhoni rank for you in terms of captains, Indian captains?
I mean, we know that Dhoni's been one of the greatest captains in terms of trophies. He's literally won all the three trophies. No other Indian captain has done that, and no one's been able to do it till now. But again, when we look at Dhoni's captaincy, I feel like we have to look at it as a whole of his captaincy, and not only the trophies he's won. I mean, that's the sad part of it because we've seen the decline he had over the end, like towards the end of his, captaincy, unfortunately. And also, like, to be honest, like, even though Dhoni came in, I feel like he had a very good squad compared to, like, as you said, the difficulties, Saurav Ganguly had to take in as a captain because there was a lot of scandals happening during that time, the 98 years era, sorry. And, like, overall, that time, they had to find a lot of young players because Ganguly came in and transformed that entire Indian team. He's the one who introduced all these youngsters who Dhoni eventually got it as, I mean, he came and did what he did with him, but like, the thing is, Ganguly had to go through a lot of difficulties as a captain. Like MSD, when he came in, he had the easier part to do, even though he did it very well. Ganguly literally had to go behind the scenes of a captain and ensure the entire Indian team was what they are today. I mean, I feel like whatever we are as an Indian team and the dominant Indian team we are today, it's because of Ganguly itself. Because without him coming and transforming us, I don't think we would have been able to produce those players overall. So I just have to give it to Ganguly. And you can see his, even though MSD is loved by everyone in the country, like how we see during the IPLs. I just feel like as a captain, like people don't really understand that how Ganguly is the one who took it. It's like he gave it to Dhoni, and Dhoni is the one who blossomed it into whatever it is today. So yeah, I feel like Ganguly is just a step ahead.
Yeah, I think every Indian captain plays their part, and whatever be the case, I think whatever he has achieved with the Indian side and the way he reads the game, I don't think anybody else does, and that's something that we probably should touch upon. Guys, whoever wants to talk about Dhoni's, tactical insights into the game and the way he reads the game, you can just chip in and start off. Rishi, you want to start?
Um, I for me it's more importantly I want to talk about his involvement in Chennai Super Kings. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that he like it's the fact that he does not just captain a side which the coaches and the management decides for him and then makes the best. So it's well known that he is active in terms of the transfers, in terms of the the players that the franchise they bring in. So that shows the level of preparation that he brings to the table, that he does not want to he's not the kind of a captain who would be like, okay, I have these kind of players, I'll try and make the best out of these, or like I'll see what I can do with them. He goes like a step further to I'm gonna go after these players, these are the kind of players that will suit the condition the best. So his preparation, his level of detail and captaincy starts like 2 3 steps like before anyone else in the IPL. So like I think that's like where he's always 1 or 2 steps ahead of the other captains or the other geniuses of the IPL. So that's what I think.
Rishi, that's really an interesting point because Abhimanyu, looking at the kind of players CSK has gone for in the last few years, like 3 4 years, they've gone for a few like aged players, and not a lot of people expected that CSK side to work well, but he's led them to a trophy in that span, and they're again doing well this year. You've seen players like Rahane come out of nowhere and perform. Same for guys like Ambati Raidu, who people thought would finish. Robin Uthappa had a decent campaign with CSK.
Yeah.
Like all these guys
Imran
who you
Tahir.
just, yeah, Imran Tahir. So a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, he somehow, I think he's a great man manager because he does have a knack of getting the best out of players, doesn't he? Like another case in point. I mean, yeah, we obviously spoke about all the experienced players who have come in and again flourished. But even someone like Shivam Dubey, he was kind of very inconsistent throughout wherever he played. Everybody knew that he was very talented, and but it was just always in spots here and there, and not. But look at him in CSK now and the way he's playing. So yeah, I think he does. I think he knows how to. From what the players have said, at least from what I gather from the interviews that players give and they talk about Dhoni's role and everything, like he gives them a lot of clarity. He gives them a lot of confidence, and I think the fact that he likes to back players, like if he gets a player, he'll tell them that you are playing this season and we are going to back you. Don't worry about your selection. Don't worry about anything. Just go and you know just go and do your thing. So that kind of a thing, I guess he just knows how to get the best out of these players like that. So that's a definite
Abhimanyu,
on top of his tactical prowess. This is also a huge factor in, in his
uh,
success.
like on that, you're talking about younger players and him giving younger players a bit more confidence in doing what they do. A guy that I was really impressed by this IPL season is Pate Rana, somebody who hasn't featured for the Sri Lankan national side, a young kid who's basically come out of nowhere. He was there last season, and suddenly Dhoni's trusted him to be his death bowler, kind of do the Lasith Malinga job, which he's doing incredibly well. Like it's, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, did you see it coming with younger guys who haven't played for the national side?
Yeah, no, I mean like someone like Patirana. I mean, yeah, we knew that he had that similar style as Malinga and all of that, but I definitely did not think he would have as good a season as he did. Like, I mean, I had a feeling he would. I knew the thought that he would go on to become a good player. He would develop well, but such instant success is not something that I was expecting. So yeah, that was definitely a surprise.
I think from now, from talking about CSK, we go back to the 2007 World Cup because let's talk about his successes in terms of trophies. The first real success came in 2007 T20 World Cup. The young side, there was no Tendulkar, no Dravid, no Ganguly, no Lakshman. All the big names were missing. Um, they went with a fairly young batting lineup. Rohit Sharma was in their team. You had a young Dinesh Karthik. Virender Sehwag was probably one of the most senior players in that team. Did you expect India to come away with that win? And how big a win was that for Dhoni and for India?
I mean, as a 7-year-old kid, yes, I expected them to win it because I thought, India's the best team in the world and they're going to win it. So, in that sense, yeah. But in hindsight, when I look at it, yeah, they had a very young squad. We saw that, Ganguly was now the captain, Sachin sat out, all the experienced players were in there. They literally went with a so-called under 21 squad. You can just say it as that because literally everybody were kids. Rohit Sharma just came in at that time and he used to play down the order. Gambhir was there, I'm not sure, I don't remember.
Yeah, he was there. He was a company. He
He was
didn't play the
there.
final though. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember
Oh,
like
he did play
all.
the final. Sorry, Sehwag missed the final. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gambhir
Yeah, I
came
mean,
for the.
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like they're all kids, and like Shishant also, like all of them are kids, and RP Singh. Like these people were not Indian players as such. It was literally an India A team playing the World Cup, and him taking that team and winning the World Cup itself was such a huge thing. I mean, T20 was a very new thing in that era.
Yeah.
Like I don't think
Yeah.
even the experienced player knew how to play that format. And I feel like in the sense that gave these youngsters and that edge because everyone were like hungry to and go and put their name out. And MS Dhoni, being the lead of that pack, him being a captain for the first time, I feel like it was just like everything was in a weird way perfect for them because like all the youngsters wanting to prove their name in the Indian squad and Dhoni wanting to become the mainstay captain of the Indian team. This helped them in hindsight. Like that team has produced so many players over the years. We had Gambhir, we had Rohit Sharma, Yuvraj play for a long time. I mean, Yuvraj was there before, but again, like those tournaments literally made them all there. And we saw how after that MSD becoming the captain for India for all three formats. So yeah, I mean, as a kid, yeah, I expected them to win it in that sense, but you can see like MS Dhoni being able to take youngsters, not only now, I mean, as you guys said, like Shivam Dubey coming and playing now, we could literally see this from the beginning where he took, random youngsters, got them into a squad and ensured they won the World Cup. I know, especially against Pakistan. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it was always there for him from day one where he understood how players worked. I feel like he understands the emotion of each player and he also knows the strength and weaknesses of each player, and I feel like that's always helped him over his career to ensure he's always had that team for him.
Rishi, before we move to the next big triumph, which was the 2011 World Cup, just let me like again put you on the spot. Something that I've always, felt lacking during that whole MS Dhoni captain era was India doing well abroad in test series. Places like England, Australia, we didn't win and we generally lost by huge margins. What do you put that down to? And do you think somewhere in his CV, it's he's missing out on something there?
To be honest, we were kind of understaffed in terms of specialist players. Like at least the big names were all past their peak. Like like we're coming from an era of like peak Sachin, peak Virender Sehwag. Okay, Virender Sehwag had some of those. He was still going kind of okay, but I still think we didn't have the players to compete with the kind of quality that England or like Australia like used to put up like against us. And like Australia used to have such a winning machine that like I don't think like we could have, even if our players were at our peak, we were playing for a draw like at their best. Like, and to be honest, even when it comes to England, we were kind of we didn't have that technical quality to match with them. And even our bowlers, like for example, we never like our main bowlers were the likes of Zahir Khan, and not we didn't have anyone to spearhead our bowling attack, to be honest. So we can't really pinpoint the blame on MSD. At least that's what I think.
No, no, I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying, like, don't you think like it's like something that's missing in that long list of achievements? Abhimanyu, what's your take on MS Dhoni's success uh, as far as red ball cricket goes abroad?
Yeah, I think that is probably the only blip on his CV, if anything. He did. I mean, when we did play overseas tests under him, like especially in Australia, South Africa, England, New Zealand, these places. I mean, it was evident that we were playing for a draw rather than trying to win. But yeah, I mean, like Rishi said, I mean, Zaid Khan was a good spearhead of the pace attack, but he didn't have a lot of support. And we mainly were relying still on our spinners, and obviously on those
Yeah,
surfaces, spinners can only do that much. You need a solid pace attack. But I think maybe it's just the resources you had at the time, and also when you're trying to focus on maybe making the team a white ball winning machine, you know, I guess it's step by step when you want to uh, take a country, like, because I'm saying country not team, because the countries are who play all three formats, right? Like, so you want to take a country cricketing team of a country to the next level in all three formats. I guess it's step by step, and so yeah, and then but yeah, he handed the baton over to Kohli, who then did take us that one step forward. Uh, but yeah, I guess that would be the only blip, if any,
yeah.
as I said.
Well, I think again, what you mentioned is quite valid. It's you have to go one step at a time, and we were focusing a lot on the white ball setup. We had to win that 2011 World Cup. There was a lot of pressure. India hadn't won it for 28 years. Adi then came 2011. Now we're older enough to analyze a little more and expect right things. 11 years, you're just thinking, you know, who plays well, who bowls when, and all of that. What were you expecting out of that 2011 World Cup?
Again, bro, it's the same answer. As 11-year-old, I expected the India to win, especially playing in India. And at that time, again, I was like, India's the best team in the world. And that time I was a huge Sachin fan, so I thought, yes, like we're going to finally win it. And obviously, like we were very dominant the entire tournament. I mean, we had only one loss against South Africa. Apart from that, we won every game apart from the England game, which was a draw. And I mean, that team was like, bro, that team was star-studded. Like you had literally especially the batting was like, it was so good that time. Sachin Sehwag opening, then we had Gambhir coming one, Kohli two, Yuvraj in that tournament, he was like in the form of his life. He was bowling well, he was batting well. We had Raina, Dhoni. I just don't think in hindsight when you look at that team, it was literally like, the like all-star team, bro. It's like a Real Madrid team. I feel like you can't expect anything else than a win, especially playing in your home side in India, and knowing the conditions the best. And especially that time, I feel like Austria were a bit of a aging team. I mean, apart from Austria, I don't think any other team was that dominant. Austria and South Africa were the only two teams who would have been dominant. I mean, apart from Sri Lanka, obviously. So I feel like Austria were a bit aging at that time. They were again like in a transition period, I feel like. That was Ponting's last World Cup. And yeah, like I just feel like the next year is when they started getting their players. So I feel like at that time we were all in our prime. So in hindsight, when you look at it, I feel like, I mean, the only drawback was of the Indian side was, the paces. Apart from, Zahir Khan and Srishant, our third choice fast bowler, we didn't have a good bowler. We played Munaf Patel some games and Ashish Nehra some games.
She's
So
not,
yeah, exactly. I feel like that was like the only weak point in the Indian squad. And it showed certain games like against South Africa and England, because of those small players, I mean, small margins, we lost those games. But when it came to the final day, the finals, like the big players showed up that day.
yeah. Rishi, let's just talk about MS's role in that 2011 victory. He was captain. Of course, he played really well with the bat on a couple of occasions. I can remember the final, obviously, 90 plus. And I think he had a decent game against Australia in the quarters. I don't remember.
I
But
think
I think that was Yuvraj. I mean, anyways, but yeah,
Yuvraj.
what do you see? How do you see MS's role uh, in that 2011 victory?
To be honest, the pressure was on us. It was our home World Cup, and it's like we had all kinds of outside noise also. Like it was Sachin's last World Cup, and we had to do it for him, and like all kinds of like Adi said, like so the other teams weren't on the top of their game, so it had all the more reason for us to come in and prove our worth, and it was about time. But to be honest, we still like needed like one or two better bowlers, I thought, because we went into the World Cup with Zahir Khan, obviously the quality bowler, but then our second and third pacers were Ashish Nehra and RP Singh.
Munaf Patel.
Munaf
No, no,
Patel,
we had
sorry,
Munaf.
Munaf Patel.
Srishant, we had
Yeah, we had
Srishant.
Munaf Patel. Yeah, and Srishant. And yeah, the spin department was still fine. We had like Harbhajan, Ashwin coming in and pitching, and Yuvraj used to bowl his his 10 overs. So but still, yeah, I felt the bowling attack could do some of it. But then again, that's where the genius of Dhoni, I felt, came into play. Right, the bowling changes, the field settings. It was like it. We the sense of security that we had when Dhoni was captaining us. I don't think we felt. I think we were too young to experience cricket under any other Indian captain. And since then, even when Kohli is there, we have that confidence, but the having that confidence and a feeling of security that okay, it's like the game is still not gone, the game is like as long as he's making the calls, he's calling the shots, we still have that security that I don't think we've ever felt that secure since Dhoni was there. And I think 2011 was like the peak when that showed up.
Yeah, it's huge victory for us as kids. It was something that we celebrated for many nights. I'm sure Abhimanyu you did too. And then we move on to his next greatest triumph, which is the 2013 Champions Trophy win. Another tight final, a game that was probably India were not favorites to win it after the first innings, but then he gave Ashwin the last over, and yeah, like what did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, that was again tight victory. I honestly I don't remember much of that. I didn't watch very well at all. But yeah, again that final at least definitely showed that like he can he he never loses his cool, or he never thinks that the game has gone out of uh, hand. And that's what as Rishi said, right? When he's the captain, you kind of always have a sense of assurance that okay, like no matter how difficult it looks, a rabbit can be pulled out of the hat. So yeah, and just if I can just go back to like the 2011 World Cup, I just
Yeah,
want to say like I think one of the best things that he did, one of his greatest decisions, and it's a decision I think would have been very difficult for anybody else to make, because he was bang out of form in that tournament, and Yuvraj Singh was just killing it. He won the player of the tournament, Yuvraj, and he was in great form. Played well against Australia, played well against Pakistan, um, and Dhoni being so out of form. And then when Virat Kohli got out of nowhere, Dhoni decides to promote himself above Yuvraj, and like promoting yourself when you know that you are not in form and the other player is so good. That's a very brave call to make, but he did it, and he executed it on the day. He made sure that it was the right decision. So I thought he later said that he felt he could better take on Murli because he had seen Murli more and he
Mhm.
had run more in the CSK nets and all. But whatever the reasons are, that I feel was an extremely brave call. So uh, yeah, that's a huge testament to his captaincy and his legacy.
Yeah, I've heard a few versions of this story, and one was the Murli thing. He could play Murli better, and I think Suraj Randhi was also in that team, and he said he could play him better as well because he had played for CSK as well. And I remember I remember I've heard this story where somebody said it was they wanted a right hand left hand combination, and if Gambhir went, then Yuvraj would come in, Kohli, whatever. Again, regardless of the reasons. I think it was a yeah, you're right. I think it was a very very bold step to come ahead of a guy who's hitting the ball so well and play your play that brilliant knock, which
And
helped them
Rahul,
helped us.
just to add, the leading up to the World Cup, Yuvraj wasn't in the form of his life. To be honest, he was having a really lean patch. He was out of the Indian side. He was having his own personal issues. And
Hmm.
I think in one of the podcasts with Gaurav Kapoor, Yuvraj himself tells ki like the selectors had completely, like it was out of the question that Yuvraj was going to play the World Cup, and it was only because of Dhoni's advocating that they decided to even consider him in the squad, let alone like let him play in the 11. So that kind of shows the trust or the faith that he puts in his players, like even the out of faith, like even the the players who are like currently out of favor. So that ultimately was the biggest turning point in the World Cup, because Yuvraj turned out to be like the deciding factor in not just one or two games, like throughout the tournament. So again, like that kind of
Yeah,
shows the kind of man management skills that he had.
Absolutely.
again, I think going back to his just the way he managed people, the way he dealt with them was amazing. One thing that comes to mind again just came to my head was Ganguly's last Test match, and we had won the series against Australia quite comfortably. And then I think towards the end of the game, he asked Ganguly to captain the side. Just again shows the kind of bond he had with everybody in the team. And it was really nice. It's just something that came to mind. That's why I shared it. But
Yeah.
again, I'll go to everyone quickly, guys. Just Adi, you said Ganguly is over Dhoni for you, which is fair. Like again, I everybody has their own opinion, and I think it's very close as well. But I'll go to Rishi and Abhimanyu quickly. Guys, is Dhoni the best cricketing captain you've seen in your time in all countries? Rishi, what do you think?
I don't know, to be honest. For me, Ricky Ponting and Dhoni are right up there. And of course,
Hmm.
Ponting had a far superior squad, and he had players who he had, like, in fact, three or four players for every position you could pick from. So I think I'll go for Dhoni, like strictly for the fact that he didn't have the perfect options like Ricky Ponting did, and yet won
Yeah,
us the kind of trophies that we would have only dreamt of. So I think I'll go for Dhoni. Yes.
yeah, dude. Mike Hussey couldn't make that Australian team. Come on, like, yeah, Abhimanyu, what do you think?
Again, yeah, I mean, it's a hard pick between Ponting and Dhoni, I guess, because even if you have all the resources and everything, I think in sport you can know that you can have the greatest players and everything, but to consistently win and be that dominant, like, it is really difficult. But yeah, again, uh, it's a really difficult one. But I think overall, just seeing even Dhoni's IPL career and everything, you put that together, and I'd say Dhoni edges it for me.
Okay, I think we've got two for Dhoni. Adi, concluding remarks on Dhoni. Do you think this is the last year? You're a big Rahane fan, and what do you think about the work he's done with Rahane? It's like closing remarks. Let's finish this.
First of all, I don't think he's done any work with Rane. I just feel like Rane is just showing his own class. I mean, this is not the first time we've seen Rane play so good. It's just him showing his class. But I don't think it's going to be his last year. I feel like he's going to play one more year, maybe next year. Then I feel
Mhm.
like he's going to, close the curtains. Because what, he's already 41 years old. I don't think he's going to be able to go on for long. I feel like next year, maybe next year it would last. After that, I feel like it's time to become the Indian coach or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I think it's a fitting end to such an amazing career. If he plays one more year, then he finishes that 3 year cycle and
Yeah,
he can
exactly.
pass on the captaincy. Probably the CSK can go out and buy another player who can replace Dhoni for a long, long time. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining. And this was just a little tribute to somebody who's been so important to Indian cricket over the years. Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adi.